Okay, so I didn't prepare any notes or anything before this. I was just standing outside and thinking about this, and well, I try and pay attention to the news and all of everything I can get my hands on regarding world events. You know what's going on in North Korea or Australia or in the Middle East. I try and get my hands on all the journalism and about really every topic I can, just so I can try and have a well-rounded view of reality. You know what I mean? So I have a daughter, so if when she asks me questions, I want to at least be able to say a reasonable answer. If I want to avoid saying I don't know, right? I don't want to say that to my kid. I'll never lie to her. But sorry, that's a tangent. So and I also try and pride myself on being a rational person, a reasonable person, never engaging in wishful thinking about what's going on in the world, like thinking, oh, well, no, nothing could ever happen like that. I don't like to tell myself things like that, because when I hear other people say it, it just sounds so crazy. Like when somebody suggests that terrorists could set off a nuclear weapon in the middle of San Francisco, people say, oh, no, that's crazy. That couldn't happen. They could never get past our security or whatever. But obviously, it could happen. And so I try not to tell myself, oh, no, that could never happen. I like to live in a world, I like to, live in a world in my own mind that matches onto reality pretty well. So I wanted to talk about what I think is really going on in the world, at least in a vague sense. Try and put yourself back in the frame of mind of the early 19th century, or no, the 1900s. I mean, around 1899 to 1900, when major scientific advances were being made. Things like electricity was being figured out, and very cold temperatures were being understood, and with like liquid nitrogen and liquid helium, and then superconductivity was discovered, and it led into new areas of physics, and Einstein started making his advances with gravity. And these are things that people don't really think about that often, except for people who are very interested in science. And then there's a very small percentage of people who have an innate understanding of these things, and so they go into the sciences, and they move in their own circles. And so people who live in the modern world, people who work at jobs, they work at Starbucks, or they work at a movie theater, or they work as a telemarketer, they don't think about the kinds of the people that do the real science, the things that gets us these things like iPods and televisions, and the space shuttle. All these things are developed quietly behind the scenes, and no, the average guy doesn't see it. Now I want you to put yourself back in the early 1900s, when these sciences were being discovered, and these mathematical concepts were being written down. Imagine, you understand that when someone makes a scientific discovery, there are 50 other discoveries that automatically follow from it, almost. And some people have some new intuition about some new technology they could invent, because they've just discovered this new law of physics. Televisions are invented that way. We managed to put something in orbit because of a science that was discovered, a theory, a mathematical theory. So imagine other sciences were developed, and they were developed quietly because of what they were. Maybe whoever it was that discovered it didn't want somebody else to know about it because of what it led to, like a weapon or a technology that puts one country ahead of another economically. These kinds of things have happened, and I'm sure I could cite many examples, but you can imagine it being true. So if you go back to when the United States was really developing its economy, when something like the Federal Reserve was put into place, I think it was put into place because someone realized that if you could have unlimited control of a certain resource, or any resource, you can pretty much work on any particular pet project quietly without worrying about ever running out of funding. So if someone developed a technology, say like anti-gravity technology, say if you could, I don't know, maybe there was some way you could build a helicopter-like device, kind of, you know, like a UFO, but and you could do it quietly and cheaply, and not and you could go from planet to planet without anybody ever. I mean, without it being a big deal. Say if you develop that technology, would you want everybody else to have that technology? Probably not, because who knows what they could do with it. Even if you have purely peaceful purposes for having the technology, you still probably wouldn't want to let it fall into the hands of somebody who might use it as a weapon. So if something like that's developed, and then it falls into the hands of, say, a government, somebody, you know, maybe a handful of guys who don't necessarily have the most peaceful purpose for using it, just exploration and further advancing human knowledge. Say if they decide, we could use this to put satellites in orbit, and we could put this we could build a base on the moon, and nobody would ever know it. So, say if that happened, that would certainly explain a lot of the UFO stories that you hear about, and a lot of the videos that you see online. I mean, they don't necessarily have to be alien visitors. They could easily be a technology that humans developed in the past that just kept secret. So, I'm not saying I think that is what is going on, but I'm saying that it seems a more likely possibility that, or a probability, or whatever, that might be the case, that rather than aliens visiting us. But if it is aliens visiting us, then here's another scenario. We are life forms on a planet floating in space, and we know for a fact that there are planets orbiting practically every other star. I mean, we've discovered them all around the stars nearby. So it seems perfectly reasonable that if life developed on another planet, then it doesn't necessarily have to be anything like humans, but they could develop a technology that could just bounce from planet to planet before us. And if they were here, say if they were here sometime 100,000 years ago or 1,000,000 years ago in the past, if they're scientists, then they would remember Earth. They would chart it somehow. They would say, oh yeah, this is Earth around this star. It has life on it. We've been studying it for this many decades. And this is all the data we have on it from all our observations. We have this animal called a cow and this animal called a cat, and they've abducted all these others. Fucking phone ringing. So I was thinking, if that's the case, then that would explain the UFO phenomena. They could easily be just alien scientists from some other planet that think Earth is interesting. They like to come here and check us out and see what we're doing. Maybe they don't give a shit. Maybe they really do. Maybe they're really interested in what we're doing because of where we're at technologically. Maybe we're at a stage where that's really interesting to other aliens. They want to see, oh, okay, are they going to make it to our level, or are they going to blow themselves up? So maybe they just like to watch. It's a perfectly realistic scenario to imagine scientists from another planet. There's an argument against this that says that why would an alien have any kind of scientific interest in us just because we have scientific interest in things? I'm not saying they should. I'm just saying that some life out there may have developed the same scientific interest as we have. There's probably lots of life out there that doesn't have any interest in us and probably will never develop technology. But some does, so maybe they're here watching us. Maybe they've been here for a long, long time. Maybe they've even communicated with humans in the past. Maybe that explains why pyramids exist, and maybe that explains why there are so many weird carvings and ancient rocks of things that look like UFOs and aliens, because maybe they saw them in the past. Maybe they talked to them. So that could be a realistic scenario also. I'm not saying that is the case, but I'm saying it certainly is a realistic scenario. And if it's true, if either of those two scenarios is true, then that's certainly a topic worth talking about. But I really don't understand why it's one of those subjects that is a taboo topic. And I think it has to do a lot with what people imagine reality is, what they think about the world. What they imagine that, I don't know, they have, well, you know how people have a really short attention span and a poor memory? They don't remember their history. They think of, Vietnam War as ancient history. I mean, obviously some people today were there, but I mean, it was so, they think like it was so long ago. And I remember when I was a kid, the Gulf War in '92. I mean, I was in 7th grade or something when that happened. And it's, the same shit is going on. So there's all kinds of shit that distracts us from what a small group of people could easily be doing. And they don't need to be involved in government. They could just be very wealthy and off doing their own thing because they have this technology. They can manipulate the rest of the world. Everybody else is moving along, doing whatever they want. In modern economies, like in capitalism in the United States or wherever, and people are distracted by the stuff that's going on in the rest of the world. But meanwhile, this other group is playing with their UFOs. Or I think I just completely lost my train of thought right there. But anyway, it's worth talking about, and science is worth talking about. I'm not a scientist, but it certainly is an interesting area to look at. I don't know why people pay more attention to, is Tom Cruise gay, or what's Lindsay Lohan doing, or I hate using those. Those are even cliched examples. But anyway, those are just some thoughts. Thanks.